We all know on number one that we could simply, set up this and think what times what is the last number that if you add together is the middle number. And what would that be, guys? What? -3 and a -3. -3 times -3 is +9. If you add it together, it's -6. Now, on this section, though, it says if you have a perfect square number or a perfect square term in the front and a perfect square term in the back, then square root them and try to plug them into your answer format. Okay, now what do I mean by try? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So here's the main gist of this. If you have a perfect square number in the front, x squared, that's a perfect square term. What's the square root of x squared? X. What's the square root of 9? 3. So the square root of x squared is x, you write that right here. The square root of 9 is 3, you write that right there. And then you think about the signs that are right here, and you'll know what to plug in for signs right here. Now, I know you're probably thinking, why the heck would I want to do that? Well, if you look at number 2, it's a little different. See, on number 2, you can't set up parenthesis, 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 xx. Why not? Because you have a 9x squared right there. So this little mini section here, it says, if you have a perfect square term in the front, do the square root of it. And what would be the square root of 9x squared? 3x. So we're going to write a 3x right there. Sorry about that 3, it's ugly. And we're also going to write, what about the square root of 4? 2. So I'm going to write a 2 right here. So again, I want to write the 3x in the front and the 2 in the back. Now, the real question is, what signs belong in here and here? Well, both of them have to be negative. How do I know that? Because on the final step of distribution, this either is going to be a +2 times a +2 to give me the last number +4, or it might be a -2 times a -2 to give me the +4. But it's either going to be positive, positive, or negative, negative. That's the only way you're going to get that last number to be a +4. And if we think about the middle term, it's a -12. So obviously we're going to need some negatives in here, a -2 times a -2. Okay? Now the reason why I say try is because you still need to double check and make sure that it works. So if you did distribute 3x times 3x, it does give you 9x squared. 3x times -2 gives you -6x, and the -2 times 3 also gives you a -6x, which does give you the -12x. So all of these are going to work, obviously, because I picked these to work using this shortcut method of factoring, where you take the square root of the first one, take the square root of the last one, and then you plug it into your answer format and think about the signs. So let's do one more here. Let's take a look at number 3. If you didn't know this trick, then you'd pretty much be stuck. But this is a perfect square term. This is a perfect square term. So we can take the square root of each and plug it into our answer format, right? So here's my answer format, parenthesis, 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 parenthesis. Let's do the square root of 16x squared. What is it? 4x. So let's all write down a 4x. And how about the square root of 1? What's the square root of 1? 1. So I put the 4x and the 1 right there. I repeat it, 4x and 1. And what symbols belong in there? Positive and a negative. That's the only way, guys. A positive, that's an ugly positive sign, and a negative. That's the only way to get -1 as your final answer, right? -1 or +1 times -1, that's the only way it's going to be a -1. So the signs do have to be different. If you're looking at these signs, they have to be different. And that makes total sense because if you were to check it, you'll see that the middle terms do cancel out, and that's why there is no B on the original question. You guys get it? Okay, let's move on to this next one. And how about you guys try it? This is our answer for number 4. Let's move on to number 5. And how about you guys try number 5? Go for it. And there's your answer for number 5. Questions?